2022 Walpole School Building Committee meeting to order. If I could first read an abbreviated version of the open meeting extension announcement. On June 16th, 2021, Governor Baker signed into law an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This act includes an extension until April 1st, 2022 of the remote meeting provision of his March 12th, 2020 executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. So that's the acknowledgement of public participation. Our first order of business is to consider and approve the meeting minutes from February 1st, 2022. Does anybody have any questions about the meeting minutes? If not, I would take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. Gallivan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Fisher, was that it?
Yeah, Jeff.
Very good. All right, so if I could poll the committee, Ms. Hamilton,
Yes.
Ms. Gallivan,
Yes.
Dr. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Hahn,
Yes.
Mr. Jeffrey Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Frisha,
Yes.
Mr. Barrett,
Yes.
Mr. Senek,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Did I miss anybody? Oh, Mr. Jack Fisher.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Our next order of business is an update on the construction manager at risk procedure from Compass Project Management. So Chin, I assume you're taking this, if we could.
Yep, Chin, you can see that.
You can see that? Okay. So we gone over the approval of the minutes and CMS, and we also have the vendor invoice today. So this is the current schedule. There's no change. We're still on schedule. Update on that is that we have already published the RFQ and received 8 firms that have submitted. That we are still on schedule, that we review and shortlist the firms. The 8 firms that were submitted were Bacon Construction, Bond Brothers, Commodore Builders, Demio Construction, Fontaine Brothers, and Charmet, Suffolk, and WT Ridge. And they're 8 very good firms submitted, and we should be able to shortlist 3 or 4 of the firms pending on the review of the package on that. I don't know if the committee has any questions, concerns at this time on this process. Hearing none. The vendor invoice, I have to apologize that we made an error in the previously sent over vendor invoice that we put in the wrong number in this column, in this row here for Taipei's invoice. So that is consists of $24,855.50 for Compass and $385,500 for Taipei, totaling $410,355.50. And here are the invoices for the details. Right now that we are just simply working on the design development for both Compass and as well as Taipei under the basic service. And this is the current status of the MSBA reimbursement status that we have submitted 1.4 million, of which MSBA have approved 1,176,822. We do have 2 of them pending here. And of the roughly 1 million amount, that 23,000 was deemed ineligible, and that this is the amount that 524,196 is the amount that is paid to the town already, and then we expect the 14 and 15 to be processed anytime now. And that's all there is for the vendor invoice.
So
And
do
I
we have a
believe-
motion? I believe, Chin, we need, and pardon me to interrupt.
Right.
We need to have a motion to approve the vendor invoice package as amended. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion by Ms. Gallivan. Is that a second, Mr. Hahn?
Yeah, second.
Very good. If I could poll the committee. Mr. Jack Fisher,
Yes.
right? Ms. Hamilton,
Yes.
Ms. Gallivan,
Yes.
Mr. Jeffrey Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Frisha,
Yes.
Dr. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Hahn,
Yes.
Mr. Senek,
Yes.
Mr. Barrett,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Did I miss anybody? It is a vote. So again, continuing, I believe with Chin, review and approve. No, we just did that. I guess we're on to TAP A already. Very good, moving right along. So Chin, you can introduce TAP A, or TAP A, you can take over, whichever works.
I believe Matt will be presenting today.
Very good.
Correct. So tonight we're going to go through the interiors and exteriors materials and finishes. Once again, we've got the renderings to show you, kind of updates from the comments that last time we met with you. And then after we present, we also have Warner Larson with us, who will be presenting the landscape, going over the different materials and everything else that is going on with the landscape. So after I'm done, they will come on board and they will present that to you. So let me bring up our slides. Again, the goal of tonight's meeting is to basically get approval on the materials and finishes that we're showing to you. Again, color will continue to evolve as we continue with the documents. And as we get into more detail, we'll be getting you material samples and material boards so you guys can look at these things in person and get a better idea of what they actually look like. And we'll go from there for materials, or for colors. So tonight is basically just the materials. We want to make sure that everyone's on board with what we're showing, and we're okay to continue with that into the DD estimate and then eventually the construction documents. So here we're going to go through kind of the materials that we're using on the project. Again, we have utility brick. We've updated the materials here to kind of show what we're using in the renderings for the colors right now. So at the base, we have a more solid brick, but then we have our precast band above that. And that's when we then switch to a blended brick color, which you can see here. Again, the dimensions are 3 5/8 inch high, 12 inches wide. We also have split face CMU veneer. Again, those are basically 8-inch block by 16-inch block. We have the same metal panel and polycarb panels that we showed you previously. Again, this is all the same stuff that we showed in the previous meeting. We've got the aluminum windows, we've got the curtain wall with regular glazing, and we've got curtain wall with the spandrel glass. And we have the sunshades as well on the south facade. We have one new material tonight to show you guys. This is kind of in response to the concern that was brought up at the previous meeting regarding the metal panel going all the way to the ground and the maintenance and durability concerns. So we have a new material. It's another masonry material. It's a calcium silicate. It's basically a linear brick. It's basically 24 inches in length, 2 3/8 inches high. And it comes in the 24-inch length, but you can also do random patterns as well, which you can see in the image down below. We have another image up here showing a close-up of the material. And this image over here has a smooth face. This one has more of a rough split face on the front of that. And then we have an image down here of the material installed on the building. These are the updated exterior elevations. They're pretty much the same as what you saw earlier. We've made a few updates based on the comments and as the design continues to develop. We have the standard split face or split face CMU veneer. We'll start down here on the west elevation. Again, we've got the key plan down here kind of to orient you to the building. North is up. We've got Washington Street over here on the right, East Street over here on the left. South is at the bottom of the page. So starting on the west elevation, which is here, this is kind of the main facade as you come down East Street. The only change that we've kind of made here is we made some CMU veneer where we are carving back into kind of the back of house area for the loading dock. We've got the utility brick up here, up top. That is the blended brick. And then down low, we've got the more solid utility brick down here. We continue to have the polycarbonate panels wrapping around the top of the gym to allow a lot of natural light into that space. We still have the metal composite panel kind of at our stairs here and here, also at the main entry up top. And again, wrapping around the top of the media center. We have updated our entry canopy. It's kind of more up to date with the precedent image that we started showing you with the polycarbonate. You'll see that more in detail as we continue on into the renderings. And then the change that we made based on the previous comments about the concerns with the durability of the metal panel going down, where we have the tech classroom kind of wings shutting out, and then also the bump outs at the classrooms. We changed that material from the metal panel to the calcium silicate. So that's that elongated brick that I showed you previously.
So Matt, there's
Moving
not
on.
gonna be any, excuse me, Matt,
Go ahead.
there's not gonna be any metal panels then? It's all gonna be the calcium silicate brick?
No, we still have the metal panel. So we have the metal panel at it's all up high now. So anywhere that it was coming down to the ground, we switched that to the masonry calcium silicate veneer, but we still have the metal panel, wrapping the stairs here. We got it also at the entry canopy up top, at the top of the media center, and again, at the stairs over here.
Okay,
Matt,
thank you.
Matt, for clarification, this is Chin, that for clarification, so that the metal panels are always a number of feet above the ground. Am I correct on what you're describing?
Correct. All the metal panel is now around probably about 8 feet above the ground elevation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So moving on to the east elevation, again, as you're coming down Washington Street, this is kind of the main view you'll see on the end of the building here. Again, we've got the calcium silicate that juts out from the tech classroom and also the classroom bump out here. We've got the standard utility brick. You can start seeing we started adding the banding and reveals that we talked about previously to kind of brighten up and give some more pop to the large expanses of masonry where you don't have any windows or anything else going on. Again, you can see the metal panel here at the stairwell. And then the other back, the back of house area, kind of where it's tucked in the woods that you won't really see, is where we switch to the utility brick. So we've got utility brick coming all the way down from the end here to help save costs for the space that it's going to be blocked out and you'll never really see because of the trees coming down from Washington Street.
You mean
the
CMU?
Sorry, CMU veneer, correct. Moving on to the north elevation, which is up here at the top of the page, looking back down. Again, we have the CMU veneer for the auditorium and also at the orchestra band room in the back. And then after that, we switch back to the utility brick at the cafeteria. We've got the curtain wall here. We've got the solid base color, the precast band, and then the blended brick up top. We've got the skylights allowing natural light into the cafeteria and also into the alt PE. Polycarbonate panels wrapping, allowing natural light into the gymnasium. And then again, this is another change that we made where we kind of carved back into the back of house, and that is the CMU veneer. Moving to the south elevation, which is the main kind of classroom wing elevation. We've got the utility brick again, solid base down below, precast, blend above, aluminum windows. Above each of these windows on the south facade, we have our sunshades. Here you can see the calcium silicate, where there was previously metal panel going all the way down to the grounds. We've got our curtain wall, we've got our spandrel glass in between, kind of separating the floors so you're not seeing the floors or above into the ceilings. And again, metal composite panel at both of the staircases up high. Now we'll move on to our renderings. This is kind of a bird's eye view looking from the south corner over here, looking back. Again, this is Washington Street up here on the right-hand side. East Street would be on the left. This is the classroom facade. Down here, you can kind of see where we switched out the metal panel for the calcium silicate, which goes all the way down to the ground. We've got our standard utility brick with the solid base, precast band, blended brick up top. And we have all of our sunshades on all the windows and curtain walls on the south facade. Again, we're still maintaining the roof screens atop around all of the units. Again, you can see we have the bands of brick and reveals kind of at the walls of the stair. We also have the building signage here, here, and also down here at both of the entries. This is kind of the view looking down from Washington Street. And we got the brick blend that we talked about up top. We've got the building signage, the brick pattern and reveals, metal panel and curtain wall at the stairs. Again, all that metal is raised up. As you can see, the door height down here is 7 feet, and we're another foot or two above the head of that door height.
Hey, Matt, can I jump in for a second?
Go ahead, Jeff.
The previous slide, you had, is there an alternating window pattern between the first, second, and third?
Yes,
But it's only on the left side, not on the right?
it's both. So it's here and then over here.
Okay.
In the middle here, it's the same. So basically, this side is mirrored over to the other side.
Yeah.
Again, this is the split face CMU kind of in the back area that is not going to be seen with all the trees and stuff as you're coming down Washington Street. Kind of wrapping around as we continue around the building. Again, you can see the south facade. You can see the calcium silicate, the utility brick, the two different types, metal panel, building signage as we continue to wrap down towards the main entry of the building. And another view zooming in, you can start seeing the brick banding, the post signage that we have, the aluminum signage mounted to the building. This is coming through the parking lot as we approach the main entry. Again, you can see the staircase. We've got the metal panel up high, utility brick low and up high with the precast band wrapping around the building. You can start to see the more developed entry canopy with the sloped steel and the polycarbonate panels up top, along with the admin wing down below here and the curtain wall looking into the media center. Again, this is approaching the main entry facade. You can see we've got signage here leading you down under the canopy for the main entry. And now Wendy's going to be talking about this later as we get into the interiors, but you can see through the curtain wall here, the main kind of ornamental stair going through the building, and then also into the media center as well. And then over here on the left-hand side, you can start to see the gym and the polycarbonate panels up above. Close-up view as you enter the main entry. Again, you can see the steel sloping with the polycarbonate on top. You've got the blended brick up top, solid brick down below, building signage, a lot of windows allowing natural light into the admin area and the offices, with the curtain wall allowing a lot of natural light into the media center up above. Again, here's another spot. We've got metal panel kind of up top here, wrapping around at the head of the curtain wall. Another view looking back at the main entry, the admin wing, guidance up top, media center, and the gym on the side. And you can start to see the community entry over here with the appropriate signage into that space. It's kind of looking back around towards the classroom wing from the parking lot and the entry loop. You can see the calcium silicate that we switched out for the metal panel here. Looking back at the main entry canopy, some metal panel up top with the aluminum column covers coming down. Again, you can see the importance of that main entry and that stair kind of showing through the building. Again, looking back into the media center through the curtain wall. This is kind of standing next to the gym, looking back at the community entry. We've got the same brick patterns that we've been talking about previously with the precast band. You can see the blend up top, the building mounted pole signage. We've got the aluminum roof edge. We've got our metal panel up top here with the curtain wall. Again, looking back at the south classroom facade. These are a bunch of images from a bunch of our projects. We've sent some of these out for people to go visit if they wanted to, but these are some of the images of the projects that we'd sent out. This is Clyde Brown Elementary School. This kind of shows, the brick and the patterns and the blending. This is an example of a brick blend. We're looking for a little bit something softer here, so not as much camouflage or patchiness to it for the upper portion of the building. This is kind of the inverse of what we're doing with we'll have a darker brick down below and the lighter brick up above. You can see metal panel wrapping the edge here. We've got the precast sill and banding wrapping around the building here. And then again, aluminum windows. Zoom in down here. This is another shot kind of looking back at the main entry. You can see the brick blends, the sills, roof edge, and we got a little bit of polycarb popping up back here from the gym as well. Again, here's another example of the aluminum building signage mounted to the face of the building. This is Ivan G. Smith Elementary School, another recently completed project. Again, just examples of the different brick colors that are possible. Cast band, metal panel, roof edge, got curtain wall, and aluminum windows. Again, here you can start seeing some of the aluminum column covers that we were talking about. Again, more metal panel wrapping the canopy and the underside of the canopy here, and also up top at the roof edge. This is Lunenberg Middle High School. Again, this is examples. We got the same aluminum windows that we've been talking about for our project, aluminum building signage. We've got the metal roof edge. Again, different colors and shades of brick that are available that we're kind of looking at the same sort of tones. This is kind of looking back at the entry canopy. Again, this is metal panel here as well. We've got curtain wall with regular glazing and spandrel as well, along with the building signage. And then down here, we have an example of CMU that was used on that building as well. This is Galvin Middle School. Again, basically just showing the same sort of materials, the different uses of the brick, the banding, curtain wall and glazing, metal top, metal panel, and the roof edge. This is Stoneham Central Middle School. This was an addition renovation. Again, this is an interior image down here. I wanted to show you the amount of natural light that comes in through the polycarbonate. As you can see, it's a translucent, allows a lot of natural light in the space. And again, I think we turned the lights on for this picture just so they weren't dark in the image, but with all this polycarb wrapping around there, you don't need the lights on for most of the time in that space. Looking back here, we've got our curtain wall, again, regular glazing, spandrel glazing. We've got metal panel at the canopy, also up high, curtain wall, metal roof edge. I'm going to move, any questions before we move on to the interior parts of the presentation?
I don't know if this is the right time to ask it, Matt, but I was talking to somebody who was saying that currently the baseball field is right next to where the parking lot is going to be on the East Street side of the school. And currently the existing building ends up with a lot of foul balls on its roof. So the question that this person brought up is, what are you going to do to protect the cars in the parking lot? But like just knowing that we're really close to the baseball field, does that affect anything about the materials you'd use on the outside of the building?
For the building, the new building is actually further away than the old one, so that gives us
Right.
a little bit more protection. But most of all the materials that are on the building are very durable. The masonry, it can take a hit from the ball. Again, we've got the metal panel, and we're keeping that up higher. So the materials that are on the building are durable.
And I'll just add, Warner Larson is here. They're going to talk about landscape, and I think David or Samir, if you could take that question when it's your during your presentation about protecting cars from the fields. Appreciate
Sure.
that. If a ball from the field hits the building, you've got a really good player on your hands. Anyway, all right.
Thank you.
We'll keep going, Nancy, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Nancy. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Wendy to present the interiors.
So Chris and Matt,
Everyone,
just-
okay. I'm sorry, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Wendy. So Chris and Matt, so just at the end of tonight, we just kind of want a final thumbs up from the committee on the exterior direction, correct, and the types of materials.
Yeah, do you want to, Brian, do you want to do that now, just before we go into interiors, just to separate the two and say, are we good to move forward with this palette in this direction? Barring final selections will be in the future at some point.
Yeah, I think it's the committee understands final colors and things of that nature are yet to be determined, but as far as the general layout and intent and the materials you guys want to use, this is how we're proceeding, and this is what we're going to price. Obviously, we can revisit once we get the estimate back in, but as long as no one has any major issues, this is what the project will be moving forward. And I guess now is a kind of a speak now or hold your peace type of moment for that.
So does anybody have any questions or comments about the materials? All right, hearing none. Thank you.
Yep.
Matt, go right ahead.
Take it away, Wendy.
All right, so starting with the lobby. So we're looking at the lobby, the central lobby here. And some concepts that we were looking at for this particular space and the materials we're looking at and discussed previously were polished concrete on the floor, porcelain wall tile. We have this sort of wonderful opportunity to really highlight this as a space of connection. We know that it's a place for students to come in and to be excited to learn for the day. So we want it to be bright and open. And so we're looking at the polished concrete, the porcelain wall tile, looking at using color as a way of connecting that stair up through the third floor. And as Matt showed on the exterior previously, this is something that you can actually see from the outside and becomes a wonderful focal point for the interior of the space. And then there are also some wood elements in there as well to help soften it up a little bit. So looking at wood underneath the stair and then a wood seating element in that space. And so the concrete then would flow north into the cafeteria. I'm going to go to the next page.
Can I ask a quick question for clarification? Similar to outside of the building, we're not looking at like color palettes right now, right? We're just looking at materials just to be consistent. All right,
That's correct.
Sorry for interrupting me. Thank you.
But
So moving-
that being said, Bill, if there's a color that you just absolutely hate and don't ever want to see again on anything, you should probably say that. So, anyway, go ahead, Wendy.
All right, so
So if we don't like
moving-
aqua, we should raise our hand now.
I'm with Jeff.
Yeah, I'm with Jeff here.
there.
That aqua for the stairwell. I'm there.
As a teacher, I'm going to say that Bill is an administrator. He has no vote.
Totally reasonable.
We'll make a note of the distaste for aqua and
Sorry,
continue
Wendy.
working.
All right, so moving north into the cafeteria, the polished concrete comes into this space as well. And being a community space that it is, we really also wanted to be open and bright and flexible. And since it is the cafeteria and a little bit of a break from the learning, we really wanted to be a restorative space. So we have that really nice natural light to the north. And then in here, we do have the porcelain wall tile and some color on the walls, and then wood slats on the ceiling that go from the 1-story space up to the 2-story volume as well. So kind of just bringing in some wood elements again to just sort of soften and add a little bit more natural materials to the space. Moving into the classroom wings and corridors, we're looking at using an accent color for each of the floors. So for in this example, we're looking at possibly using orange for one floor, green for one floor, and blue for another floor. And where we would see this color is in the floor tile itself. So in just a few key areas, a majority of the tile that we're showing here, the floor tile, would be very neutral. So we're just using that color in the select areas. And then we would also see some color coming in through wall paint in the form of an accent wall within the classrooms. And the other area we would see color on the in the corridors would be in that ceramic tile that is on the outside of the restrooms. And so we wanted to use these floor patterns as a way to really highlight circulation and keep a clear path to the exits and the stairs. And the next slide has a perspective rendering of those corridors. So the top left image there, I guess that would be the green floor. So just shows a little bit of color in the corridors, and again, just kind of identifying the floor by the specific color accent. And then the image below is of a general classroom, and it shows the casework or the cabinets, which are in a maple wood, and then the so the tall storage cabinets and a sink with some open bookcases above. Those would actually also be in wood. They're showing up in white, but they would be matching. And yeah, so this perspective is really just from the teacher's desk in this moment. And moving on to the STEAM or the creative spaces. So the creative spaces, and here we're primarily talking about the tech ed classrooms and the art classrooms, because these are a little bit more specialized. So we are looking at putting the polished concrete on the floor in these spaces as well, so that we can use materials to give permission to get messy and explore. We're also showing the in the rendering on the lower left there. You can see we have a pipe grid. There'll be on the ceiling, and there'll be power reels hanging from the ceiling as well. We want to have as many writable surfaces in there as we can. So creating some marker board walls, and we're showing marker board surface on the cabinets themselves. So that's what we're looking at for the creative spaces. And of course, we want them to be as flexible as possible so that they can evolve as the programs evolve. The restrooms, to review what we spoke about last time. So we're looking at doing full height tile in the restrooms. The curved portions of the wall would have a ceramic tile that's in a vertical orientation. On this diagram, that tile is being shown in sort of the lighter gray, and then also the more tealy aqua color. And then we are showing a 12 by 24, so the larger format tile in the darker gray. And then on the floor, we have the epoxy resin.
One item on the toilet rooms for the tile, we took the full height tile up in all of the student toilet rooms and the public toilet rooms. In the staff toilet rooms, we kept them at the 5-foot height that we had before, hoping that the staff is not as rough on those spaces as the students are.
And then last, the media center. So looking at the media center, this is primarily a carpeted space. So just trying to find some ways to delineate and making, looking at different, using possibly 3 different carpets in that space just to break it up a little bit. The bluish area is showing the 2-story volume in the space. So when So when Matt showed you the exterior of the building, we were kind of looking in through that large glass volume right there. So we have that really nice volume of space. And so this bluish box on this diagram would really kind of reflect what is happening in the ceiling in there. So we're continuing to work on that space, but these are the primarily the materials that are in there. So it's primarily carpeted and then drywall on the walls.
Any questions or comments? Otherwise, we will move on to the landscape presentation.
No, Matt, I was just going to comment. I like that idea that Wendy mentioned about the color tiles. I noticed that in Wakefield, and that was a nice touch to designate the neighborhoods of the grade levels.
Oh, good.
I just have a
Can I
quick
offer a
question.
comment?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ally.
I just had a quick question. So are these the tiling? Is it like tile squares, industrial tile squares that they could be removed and replaced if stained? And also, is it 100% carpeting, or is there like tile work through the main entryway into that media room?
So the tile squares, you're talking about the carpet tile? You're talking about the carpet? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So it's carpet tile. So if there is a problem with something, yes, it can be popped up and replaced. And this is absolutely standard for all schools now, and actually all majority of commercial environments actually. So yes, it's definitely that kind of product. And then yes, we were showing carpet everywhere except for the workroom. So there's a workroom kind of right in the middle of the plan right there that has a sink in it. So typically we would put more like a resilient flooring like we have in the classroom corridors and that kind of space. But I mean, yeah, yes, everything else that we're showing would be carpet.
Okay,
Jeff,
thank you.
question? Jeff,
Yeah,
you have a
just a comment. I agree with Dr. Goff. I really like the color designation for each one of the floors. I was wondering if there's any way to incorporate, you know, the orange, blue, and white kind of Walpole colors into that color designation.
That's a good one, Jeff. I would think maybe even for like, especially maybe like on the 8th grade floor,
Yeah.
something like that, where they're kind of one step away from the high school or something like that.
Yeah.
Yes, so so I was thinking if the central lobby, that stair, that accent that's being used in there, it could be blue. And then if the first floor accent is orange, because when you walk in the building, you will see this blue ribbon of a stair, and then looking towards the classroom wings, you will see some orange. That's one way to see blue and orange, but to designate the 3 different floors, but still have them blue and orange is a little bit challenging, but we don't need to make them 3 different colors. We don't have to do the color designation by floor, but there are only so many colors, and the materials themselves only come in so many colors. We don't know exactly what that material will be just yet, so we don't really know exactly what those color options are, but it's generally going to be something in the spectrum of a red, a yellow, a blue, a green, and an orange, when we don't always get orange. But so if we want to designate the different floors, and we could have an orange floor and a blue floor, but then there's a 3rd floor that needs to be something else. So the cafeteria, the gymnasium, the lobby itself could definitely all be combinations of blue and orange. I don't know if that will help reinforce it. And if the 8th grade floor is the top floor and we want that to be blue, we can incorporate more orange, maybe in some graphics or in another way, just to set it apart.
Color's not my thing, so it's just a suggestion. So it's up to you guys to figure out where it goes.
Okay.
Nancy, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is now the time that we would talk about like what a classroom looks like and how many video displays and whiteboards are going to be, or is that like down the road a bit?
We started talking about that. We had a technology meeting last week and we started to discuss that. So right now, the main teaching wall will have a whiteboard and a projector on it. And there'll be a secondary mobile display, which would probably be on a cart. So right now we're looking at carrying those two for the teaching display devices.
And have the teachers had input to that, like the actual classroom teachers?
They were not on that meeting, and I don't know if Bill has been in contact with them at all.
Yeah, Matt, they've absolutely been involved because we get their input in every meeting that we do outside, the one. So the classroom teachers were obviously, Nancy, involved in the visioning. And then we had a regular education classroom meeting where this was discussed. In department chairs and cluster meetings, this has been discussed as well as with the principals who've talked about it at faculty meetings. So yes, they've been involved in that. One of the important features for them was projectors on the main teaching wall, and then a secondary wall. We talked about the potential touchscreen monitor, which excited a lot of the teachers as well.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Nancy, go right ahead.
I was just wondering if they want to be able to divide the group into fours and have everybody have a space with a monitor, for example, in some cases. It sounds like no, huh?
Well, I did mention the Natick, and in our technology meeting, additional walls came up, and then that starts to get a little bit, Matt, you correct me if I'm wrong, it seemed like that started getting outside of our price estimations.
Correct.
So-
I think budget will be the issue there for trying to get four teaching stations with either marker board with a projection screen or the digital flat screens.
But that was also the thinking, Nancy, behind the secondary monitor being mobile, so that
Yeah.
teachers could differentiate and not be locked down to a wall. They could bring it to students working in a group or split a class up actually using the monitor.
I guess I would just say, let's at least, consider that if the reason we're not doing it is financial, maybe we can't, but let's at least give put a bookmark in to say, if we can, maybe we want to be able to do that in some of the classrooms. I don't know, but I think it might be useful.
I would also add, if I could, that any and all involvement of the staff in terms of, what they see as practical, including if we have to value engineer anything, which hopefully we don't have to do in the classroom, their involvement will be important. So
Nancy, with regard to the TV screens, I think that the primary infrastructure that we're providing is the projection on the main teaching wall. And that was discussed in that technology meeting. And then there's a secondary wall on the opposite side of the room that has marker boards and tack boards. And so then from there, the approach of adding more screens is these screens they're on wheels, basically. It's not really a cart, but they're on like stands with wheels. And I don't know what Natick has or what the reference is there, but potentially it's the same thing. And they're all basically wirelessly connected. And so you just plug it into the wall for power wherever it lands. And so the decision on buying 4 of those versus 1 of those really becomes a budget impact, because there's already going to be plugs and wireless throughout the entire building. And so that becomes later when the budget is set for, is taken up with the technology procurement package. The overall budget of the project is already set with the technology package, and so we have to work within that, or the committee in town could elect to spend more money than that, but it's only reimbursed by the state at $1,200 a student. It might be more than that now, but it's about that.
Okay,
So-
yeah, no, what we're going by is when we went to Natick, the screens were mounted on the walls, and each classroom had 4 stations. So that's that's the only thing I've seen. That's okay. I get it.
Nancy, I would guess that the building committee or something decided to give the teachers far more than they could ever possibly use, because that's just my opinion, but.
So I just want to be clear about what's in the design development and estimates right now is a projector on the TV and then the technology, projector on the wall, one wall, and a mobile TV that goes in each of the rooms. That's in the technology budget. But we're not planning for infrastructure or anything like that to actually physically hang TVs on all of these walls. So if there's a different directive, then, we should hear that. But I think that the technology programming that happened with the technology folks from the district and with input from Bill Hahn and the other teachers was that direction. So
Yeah, I get it.
I think the only thing that was still up for discussion, we left that technology meeting, and we asked specifically, we needed to have an answer right away, was whether or not TVs would be hung or on a cart. So, and I think the consensus at that meeting was on a cart, and we were going to get more information, but I think that's accurate, what you just said.
And another good part of if they're mobile is we've got those breakout spaces outside in the corridor. So you can actually wheel them out into the corridor and have group working out there as well.
Yep. Thank you.
Welcome, Nancy. Allie, do you have another question?
Yeah, I have one.
I was thinking about the cabinetry. You said in the tech spaces, they have, is it whiteboards on the cabinetry? And I was just wondering about the durability of those.
Correct. Yeah, based on our meeting that we had with technology last week, they asked for as much writable space as they possibly could get, and also pin-up space. So we added the marker board on the front of the cabinets. With Wendy, I'll let you go into more of the durability, but we added as much marker board as we could. And then they're also going to be using that markable surface, not on the cabinets, but on the typical boards. They're magnetic. So they'll be using them to hang up and pin stuff up as well.
The writable surface on the cabinets is very similar to the ones that you find on tabletops. So something that we've been seeing as far as furnishings go is this more going towards the direction of writable surfaces and some of these more technology driven spaces. So it's a very similar concept. It's not a magnetic marker board like we have on the walls. So all of our marker boards that are hung on walls, those are magnetic. But we won't have those on the cabinets themselves. And we're just talking about the actual upper doors, so not like lower base cabinets.
Wendy, can you clarify that? What about the tall storage units that's in there? Would that be a full door of writable surface or not?
No, it would just be the upper doors.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have one more follow-up question, thinking about the regular education classrooms and the sinks in the classroom. And each of the kind of 3 floors or units as they're separated, are any of those sinks handicap accessible, or do they all have cabinetry underneath them?
They are all accessible. They're all wheelchair accessible.
All right, great, thank you.
A question?
Go ahead.
Hi, this isn't really on the interior finishes, but I had asked Brian and Chin and Katie a question a couple of weeks ago after the last meeting, and this was on the bathroom count. I was wondering if you were able to get the information, get back to me, Chin, or anybody.
The toilet count right now, we are exceeding the minimum by code. So that's kind of where we fell for the toilet fixture count. And again, we kind of look at it as providing more space for the educational use and trying to limit the amount of, we provide enough for the kids to use it, but we try to put more money into the educational spaces and try not to, overpopulate with toilet fixtures. So yes,
I understand that. I guess I'll ask the staff is right now, if you look at it, there's 5 or 6 classrooms that are being serviced by one set of bathrooms, which is only 5 positions. And what do they think about only having 5 positions to service 5 or 6 classrooms when classes are passing. If they're satisfied with that, I am, but it just seems a little bit low and tight. So.
We kind of already have that now, Jack. We only have on each floor, there's 1 boys' room and 1 girls' room. And there are, I don't know, at least 10 rooms on the first and second floor. So what we're seeing now is just a huge improvement to what we currently have. So.
All right.
It
I
should,
just wanted
it should
to,
work.
I just wanted to bring it up because it seems like you're going to be servicing 75 or 80 people during passing, and there's only 5 positions. And
I would
that's-
love to believe the students are going to the bathroom during passing, but that's their social time. So,
Okay,
yeah,
I rest
A
my
lot of them go,
case.
yeah,
I
they'll
won't
go
ask-
during
I won't
class
raise
too.
this again.
Take
Thank
a
you.
hall path during class, right?
Right.
One thing I would add, Jack, the modern thing seems to be the kids asked to leave class to go to the bathroom. Passing time is to go to the bathroom is too gross for a lot of them, so it doesn't get as crowded as you might think.
Okay, thank you.
Any other?
Just one final note on that is just to recognize that it's actually, in some ways, this is a step better than a lot of other schools where you'll have it like bigger bathrooms with a lot more positions in them, but it serves like an entire floor plate or something like that. What we tried to do was actually break it down into smaller chunks that relatively serve the spaces that they're in and put it closer to where they'll be needed, so that in the case of someone does in like was just mentioned, someone wants to take a hall pass to go to the restroom during class instead of doing it during passing, you know, a teacher can, in this case, so the way it's designed, have eyes on the student and their class at the same time. And so by just standing at their door. And so that's kind of an embedded piece of the design, is that you can see where they're going and still control the class and not send someone all the way around down the floor, down the hall, you know. So it's kind of I think it's, in a lot of ways, this is just a really evolved design on toilet rooms. So Matt, I think we should pause here before we go to Warner Larson and just make sure there's, just like we did for the exteriors, get the, you know, thumbs up. Mark, I don't know if that's an official.
Yeah, I don't think we need to take a vote, but does anybody have any questions or comments about interior materials? Very exciting stuff. Colors are more interesting, but right now we're just talking about materials. Very good. So I guess Chris Wendy, thank you. And Chris will go to exteriors.
Yep. Matt, did you have is the cost data somewhere coming that they asked for?
Yeah, I have that towards the end of the presentation after Lance presents.
All right, great. Cliffhanger. All right. So we'll go to Warner Larson.
David, I'll turn it over to you, and you can present your team and your information.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks, Matt. So my name is David Warner, principal at Warner Larson Landscape Architects, and my role in this project is principal in charge. Ty Johnson, who's the project manager, is taking care of one of his children at home, and so asked me to stand in, make the presentation, along with Samir Boite, who is the design director here at Warner Larson. Ty is on the call and is listening in, so that there's that continuity of understanding. But good to see you all tonight. I'll be moving fairly quickly through information so I can hand it over to Samir, who's going to get into the material discussion. If we can go to the plan view, Matt. Okay, so yes, there are faces, and Emily Hunt and Tessa Hall Combs are also working on this project, but are not on the call tonight. So I think it's really important. We don't get in front of your group very often, and we wanted to just start by recapping the design strategy with regard to the site plan. And we've really taken to heart, you know, the comments and the feedback that we've been receiving throughout the feasibility and schematic design process. And this moment in the design development phase, I think, is really important, just to revisit these key components that we're looking at from design strategy, creating a timeless classic landscape, really that's authentic to your town and is compatible with the building architecture, which we work with TAPE all the time and work very closely to make sure that there's a seamless connection there. Durable materials that are also environmentally responsible. Something that's the campus is a pedestrian-friendly campus, and creating a safe vehicular and pedestrian interface. Universal access to all of the outdoor environments are really important, encouraging community use on the weekends as well. And to the extent that we can, making these outdoor spaces as multifunctional as possible is a great way to add value. Keeping the landscape planting low maintenance, we know is really important. And we design a lot of schools, so we know how to do that and what's works well for your maintenance people. And then looking at green infrastructure and how we can, and we work very closely with a civil engineer to make sure that the landscape is indeed taking the stormwater and handling it in a responsible way, can be used for educational purposes as well. Let's continue. So this plan really is just a recap of where we're at in design development. Washington Street is on the right and East Street is on the left. If we go to the next plan, which zooms in a little bit more, I want to answer the question that came up relative to the baseball field. The parking lot that's closest to it is 20 feet further. The nearest car along there is 20 feet further from the baseball field than the existing building. And it's also about 8 feet higher in elevation. So we do believe that there's even more, because of that physical separation, it's less likely that you'll have foul ball issues in that vicinity. So just wanted to point that out. The other things that we'll be looking at in the materials presentation, which is really the heart of what we're here for tonight, is these areas, in particular, the entrance plaza, which is 7 coming. If you can zoom in a little bit, that would be helpful. Yeah, thank you. 7 is the entrance plaza. And then the Learning Courtyard, which is number 3. And then north of the building, number 4 is the outdoor dining and event space. And then over by 1 and 2 is what we're calling the field amenities. And then lastly, that Samir will be speaking to, is the school garden and number 5, and the nature exploration outdoor classroom number 3. So I think with that, I'd like to turn it over to Samir so he can walk through the materials discussion for each of those spaces.
Okay, so I'll try to be quick since I realize that we're almost at 7 o'clock. I do want to start by saying that what we are showing here is actually what we've gathered in the schematic design. So from a cost estimate standpoint, we're not trying to introduce anything new here. We requested with TAPE to just get in front of you because the DD cost the estimate set is coming up soon. And we wanted to have a chance to talk to you to see if any adjustments need to be made to the site amenities and the site plan. So in the entrance plaza, typical using, earlier we mentioned, you're gonna see the materials repeat. So we're gonna try to not have too many materials. It's mostly gonna be the precast benches and the metal benches. So the metal benches will be along the bus drop off. There you can see the precast concrete benches are a nice spot by the entrance plaza for folks to congregate. We're only limiting the unit pavers by just the entrances, the entrance plaza and the community space. The rest of the materials mostly then concrete and asphalt. The pattern there is just to be determined. So as TAPE develops the material palette for the exteriors, we work with them closely to coordinate the pattern and the materials. The main piece of the circulation down below where we're showing the white cubes, like we have used them, we think those will be granite cubes. So because you do have a pedestrian connection spine from the building going down to the lower fields. And a precast concrete material may not be durable enough for in case a vehicle or a bus, but these act as, plus it's a raised bump as well. So it'll be like cars will be going much slower down there. The stamp asphalt is one of the treatments we'll show there to kind of, again, emphasize that as a pedestrian zone and not as an asphalt. These precast color concrete benches, it's just the color can be determined. They do come in a beige color. Sounds like with the building material where TAPE is heading at, we'll again work with them on those. So they're going to be small cubes and like longer benches. The next one. Again, the Learning Courtyard, similar materials. So here we were proposing actually some fixed ones, the precast benches. If the town is open to it, actually can accommodate a lot of students. The movable stacking metal tables and chairs, the gray and the orange ones, they actually fold and they stack. And the example of a storage shed with a chalkboard, so you can easily stack those tables and chairs, and that way you can actually get more students and not have to provide so much fixed seating for your outdoor classroom. Plus also allows for flexibility for a teacher, whether it's a small group class or you want to have students with 20 students there. And next one. This is actually very exciting space here. So the outdoor cafeteria, a lot of these elements are coming from the visioning that David had done way back in with the school, where they had requested, I think, a capacity of 45 students or so to be able to have outdoor dining. So again, there is some fixed cafe table, that the gray silverish one that you see on the lower right. We're proposing some fixed seating, but the one that's kind of facing the amphitheater, we think that that could be movable, again, folding, stacking tables and chairs. And the reason for that is when you could actually have a little music band or performance out there, you can move the tables away, and those the grade works actually in our favor for the terrace walls for the amphitheater. And it's a good generous size that you can actually have, we can actually study that, how many student capacity that amphitheater can hold. We can get that answer to TAPE, but it's a good number that can actually be seated in that outdoor amphitheater. And the image there is just to show how those walls will be seated into the lawn in the top left. All right, so the field amenities, because we heard also that the baseball field is used by the town and is used quite heavily. So we're focusing on the key materials here. The pedestrian spine is actually really nice, the connection. We also see that as being used by the families during the weekends, but also by the school during the bus or the car drop off. So again, the same materials of the cubes will repeat in the grow of the trees down below. The grade works in our flavor, so it acts as a spectator seating towards the fields, where again, those can be seat walls as shown in the lawn, cast in place. The pergola shade structure is just a placeholder. It's kind of a really nice overlook vantage point. And now that we've seen the building, the canopy by the front entrance, actually we can work with TAPE to have something harmonious that's going by the entrance plaza, much smaller scale though. There was a request during a visioning that this is middle school, so there are older children now for the typical playground structure. Could we have something outdoor physical stuff for PE? We really could not quite get a full-size basketball court, or that was not the request. There was not a space to have that, but there was a request, maybe, is there something we could have like a ninja type fitness? So what you're kind of showing there, it's like a full circuit. It's a pretty, and after this call, if anybody wants more specific of this, we'll be glad to answer that. But it's a group, it's a kind of a ninja exercise targeted for this particular age group. And it's been priced out. So that's number one. What you see there in the rendering is that's a placeholder for that. And we feel that's a good location because it's next to the fields. And so it could actually get used by the community on the weekends when they are on the fields. The next one. All right, so yours, we kept more on the science side, this facade of the building. So school planters, that's the photo from Clyde Brown down below. So those will be the recycled raised planters, so accessible. I think from the rendering, you can see there are 6 planters, what we are showing. And we'll provide some storage for them as well, and water connection. On the number 3 side, there was, again, a request in envisioning, could we have something that's more like an exploration trail? So we are still preserving a good chunk of the woods next to the road there above. So people, students obviously with the teachers can explore the nature area. So this is more like an informal classroom. We will be cutting down some mature trees. So I think we can probably use them in the landscape as an exploration or also as an informal outdoor learning area space. And the last one, this is really talking about just the key planting. We do have a separate meeting that Matt is organizing with the park superintendent to go along the transformer buffer and the buffer planting associated with the neighbors coming up the new bus driveway. We heard loud and clear that we want the maintenance to be very minimal. So it's mostly really proposing lawn and trees. Sometimes the native fruiting trees can get messy, and we are actually a big proponent of using native trees. So we plan to use them on the outskirts where they're adjacent to lawn, on the perimeter of the school, but more or less non-fruiting trees. And some of these are common trees that you see now, urban tolerant, but really want to provide shade, and trees take a while. So these trees, what you're seeing some in the photos, they are obviously shown at 10, 15 years of maturity, but day one, they're going to appear small. But as the landscape matures, I think the school, the students, and the community will appreciate the shade it will provide over the years. So I went really fast. So if there's any questions, but Matt can go back to a particular slide if you want me to answer anything. But I think what we're looking for is what we tried to do. We got some feedback from TAP has been leading. So they have been passing some comments back from the teachers, what they want for outdoor learning, able to take one class or two class. And they also wanted multiple areas for outdoor learning. So that's what we try to provide here. I see a hand up.
Mr. Barrett, you have a hand?
Yeah, just a quick question. I know this is still somewhat, schematic or conceptual, but and I'm glad that you mentioned, the trees. That's like a 10 to 15 year picture conceivably, but is the number of plantings and that are shown in these different pictures, is that accurate as far as like the quantities?
Yes. So what we have in the overall site plan is again what we had in our schematic design plan, so which we shared. So we haven't really added any more plantings since then.
Do these plans include an irrigation system for this landscaping?
No, for the lead criteria, like all that the landscape contractor will be responsible for establishing the irrigation. So temporary irrigation is allowed for a period of 1 to 2 years until they get established. But if you notice, a lot of these trees are planted in lawn with generous soil volume. And these are also the tree species we are picking up are going to be urban tolerant. So there is no irrigation right now proposed, to answer that question.
Okay, then just a quick note for the designers and architects, if we can make sure that we have access to outdoor faucets near the gardens, which we'll need when we start planting stuff out there.
See a question, Nancy?
Yeah, I was just thinking about outdoor lighting. Is that adequate? Or is that not being addressed yet?
We have to work with TAPI on that. Like usually, so beside your parking lot lights, which would be at a certain height, the rest of the lights along will be mostly around the walkways, entrance plaza, and those tend to be pedestrian scale height. So either it could be 12-foot mostly poles, or they're usually not taller than 16-foot, but no other lighting like bollards are being proposed on the plan.
But to answer the question, it's definitely being addressed. It's been in the estimate, and with the layout of the lighting is being coordinated with the planting design.
Good. Yeah, because I was just thinking like outside the auditorium area, for example, if there's a concert at night, you'd want to have the proper lighting and, things like that. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
No, I agree. Yeah. Thank you. Is anybody looking at who else has questions to ask?
Ben, do you still have another question?
You have
no, I got to put my hand down. So.
Okay, and you'll have a copy of this presentation. So if any between now and when we do our DD submission for the cost estimate set, if you have any questions or need more clarifications, you can field them through TAPE through us. But from what we presented, again, we still are in the design development phase, but it seems in line with that meets your students' needs.
So I got a quick question, just to confirm, if you go back to the site plan, I know you mentioned the ninja course. Is there any, just from the school's perspective, I think both middle schools now have a hard top surface, whether it's directly behind the school or the tennis courts at Johnson. Is there a need for a, bad weather recess area?
So it's the question.
If it's not a full-size basketball court, you mentioned that didn't fit, but both middle schools now, I believe, have a blacktop area next to the school or close to the school for winter recess, or obviously when the lawn and the field are probably not suitable for that.
And with number 6 is right now, I think tapping and climb, but it ties in the call, but the generator is going there, right? In that area where that was one area we were looking at possibly somewhere could we accommodate have basketball court on the wall. Because that's near the school. Because if you look at any other areas, you have the courtyards, the back side of the school is pretty tight. We can study that and get back to you on that way if we can accommodate. I don't think we can accommodate a full-size basketball. The site plan is pretty tight with the circulation and the parking that's required. But we can work with TAPE to see if there's a half basketball court we can accommodate near the school against.
Yeah, I'm just asking really for the school's opinion, just to make sure it doesn't necessarily have to be a basketball court, but just a hard surface that isn't, that's better in the winter weather or the spring weather when it's really wet. If they don't want it, that's fine.
Samir, can you guys get something up in that circle?
Yeah.
Just maybe think about that circle as a place that, and it's right near the gym. So if there's something outdoor, we could maybe, it might be hard with grading to get accessibilities to it, but I think that's the big challenge here, Brian, is that you can see with the grading plan here that we're struggling with grading everywhere. And so like carving out flat space that's accessible for everybody is really challenging. But if the district wants us to pursue something like that, I think that's your best shot really out of most places. But we can study, is that something the district or the town wants us to look at, or is it okay how it is?
It's a great question. I appreciate you asking it. We'll have to be creative in what we do for recess, but it would be great to look at that option if that's a possibility, to have a hard top space.
We'll study the question.
Jeff?
Yeah, I guess my question is, number 1, the outdoor fitness, is that where the ninja course is?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess my comment is, aesthetically, looking at the building from East Street, we've got this grand entrance at number 7, and we've got a ninja course in front of it. And I can't vision that.
Okay. It's much lower. It's not, it's like the
Yeah,
grades are
I'm
dropping
still-
there. Yep.
Yeah.
And we can, there's some flexibility to move it a little bit, so it's not maybe right in front of the building. There is obviously the baseball fencing we have to deal with.
Is this?
What we can work on, I think, as a team is get the model from Warner Larson and then do some views from East Street at the building to help visualize what that looks like. We can try to do that to help.
I think this is the first the school folks have heard about a ninja course too. So I think we probably need some time to talk about that. That's a priority. This is the very, very first time we've heard it. So maybe
I agree. Be part of the curriculum?
No.
Physical fitness is.
Yeah, exactly.
So think of it as as an outdoor fitness area. I wouldn't get hung up on the term ninja.
Yeah.
It is definitely something that's very age appropriate for middle schoolers.
Right, I agree, Dave. The point is not to say it's called ninja. It's an outdoor fitness because this age group has outgrown. And I believe this request came back way back in the visioning, but we have never had a chance to present it. So
Sure.
you let us know if it's a component that the school would like to have.
Right, and we'll model it like Chris said, so you'll be able to see. It's about 7 feet lower than that main central spine.
Any follow-up comments?
Yeah, another question I had, the outdoor learning space, that's number 3, right?
Yeah,
Is each one meant to have one of those sheds?
No, only the bigger courtyard, because just the one that where Matt's cursor is right now. Yeah, so that's the one supposed to that one will have a shed, not the other ones.
Just the one on the East Street side?
Yeah, the other ones are small. The one in the back, especially towards the service drive, it's a smaller area. It's more for, a small group of students to get outside.
Okay. And their purpose is to hold those chairs and tables?
The one, the courtyard, that's on the bigger one, yeah, that will have the tables and the chairs in addition. The other ones will just have some seat wall. And number 3 on the coming from the Washington Street, which we said, that's really more boulders and lots. It's more like a nature area. It's not quite, it's more like, because there is a pedestrian path that goes through the woods. It's more for science exploration. And we can look for some opportunities to collaborate with your science teachers if they want to have some there are outdoor lab tools that are available as kits for middle students if people want to incorporate them on the campus.
Samir, I think the question is more like, what's the, Jeff, I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what's the purpose of the shed?
Yeah, I mean, aesthetically, again, concerned about that, but I just wasn't a big fan of the 2 tables and the small table and 2 chairs.
Okay, I think if you go to the photo, again, we haven't had a chance to come to this group, and that's why we're having this meeting.
Yep.
The tables and chairs are just so if the outdoor learning classroom wants like a writing surface, but sometimes if you just have seat walls, then you don't have, you let us know if you don't feel there's a need to have tables and chairs for the outdoor learning, we can easily take those out. So Matt, if you're gonna go to the picture of the shed, we were trying to incorporate sort of being creative there. That shed doesn't have to be that tall. So that's just a photo. It's not our project. It won't be that tall. But you can integrate a chalkboard. So if you're making use of one side of the wall, and the storage can be used for storing those folding tables and chairs. So it will be much smaller than that photo you're seeing.
My only other question or thought for the committee is about the equipment that we might need to be able to maintain. And I don't know what the agreement will be between the Department of Public Works and the schools. But in terms of having storage space for even snow blowers or equipment that we might need to keep the space a larger school space than we've had to in the past, do we have adequate shed or garage space for the custodians?
I mean, if Di is still on the call, I'm not aware if that has come up before, Chris, storage for those type of equipment.
Yeah, Chris, I don't know, we might actually look to you for your input on that, but storage is always on every school project is always a topic of discussion, and where are we accommodating maintenance equipment and materials used in maintenance?
One thing to bear in mind, I think, is that it doesn't fit from a design perspective, but someday in the future, do you need to drop in like a shipping container type thing for storage? Right? It seems to be that's kind of the new storage facility for schools, to drop in shipping containers in a corner here or a corner there. So
Yeah, and looking at the site plan, that's actually a good valid point. It happens on a lot of the school projects we design, and invariably they end up somewhere on the field space, which we're not showing is grayed out because we're not really touching the baseball field.
I would see it as, again, just imagining in the future, if you just suddenly decide you need a lot of storage, that sort of loop to the top of the current frame, that grass area where people were mentioning putting in a basketball court, I could easily imagine a couple of shipping containers getting dropped into a spot like that in the future. Just kind of using my imagination. So those of you from Warner, Warner Larson, I'm a high school teacher in a building that's about 15 years old. So I've kind of seen how it's progressed in the last 15 years. And, you know, a lot of shipping containers have been dropped in the last few years.
Sure. So we try very hard to help our schools that we're working with during design to think what their needs are and to plan for them, so that we can integrate that into the landscape in a way that's not going to be an eyesore later, like an after the fact. So I think the next steps here would be to make sure that we can verify what those storage needs are and where would be the best location to accommodate that on the site.
I just had a comment too on the shipping containers, because I can't think of what containers are on the current fields where those are not being touched, and where the front entrance, as Jeff mentioned, is kind of flipped. Just what we currently have and we're not touching when we talk about storage, take that into consideration as well.
Okay.
There may be an opportunity, I was just reflecting back on the floor plan, and I think we'll bring this up in a working group meeting and then report back to this group. But there may be an opportunity. There's a custodian storage closet on the first floor over by the gym. That's pretty big. And so maybe there may be an opportunity to carve out a piece of that and then put a door to the exterior and make it like a small exterior storage that's as part of the building, but still considered in the custodian realm. And that would be right just to the left of where number 8 is, in that kind of area. So it's right where you might want it in order to like clear the major pathways and stuff like that. So there may be an opportunity there that we can address with this comment, and then work with Warner Larson on some others if we need to. So. Nancy, is your hand still up, or is that?
Yeah, no, this recent conversation just made me think about something else. The fields are going to be used by the soccer players and the baseball players, and at different points we've had porta potties out on the field. It just makes me think about access to the bathrooms for the high school kids after school. Have we considered that at all? Is there a bathroom near the community entrance, for example?
There are some near the 7, which is the main entry to the building. Basically, you come in and they're like right on the other side of the hall there. So students would have to come across and in, but that's really the closest spot for restrooms, which means you're leaving your front door unlocked while the kids are using the field. So, but that's never been brought up as a program element to sort of make adjacencies on.
Yeah, I just thought of it now for the first time. And, you know, it's obviously the porta potties are not the popular thing to do. And at different points, I know the building has been available to the kids. I just think it's something we need to think through.
Nancy, that was the same kind of thought I had when we were talking about the fields and how they're currently used, and the entrance being on the other side. When you drive down East Street, that's what you see are the porta potties.
Yep.
So that's another thing, like the things we were talking about, the shipping containers. We can look at the field and recommend some location that's not like an eyesore, because invariably it may end up being back on the fields, you know. And you want to make sure that we have given a space for them should the town wants to have for some big events.
Jeff, you had a question?
Yeah, Chris, back to your comment on, the janitor closet there, by the loading dock. Could we look at doing the same thing for the outdoor learning to incorporate whatever storage is needed, as part of the building?
Yeah, we'll take a look. There might be an opportunity there as well, so.
And then to follow up on Nancy's comment as well, I thought there was a restroom somewhere near the event entrance.
Yeah, that's what we were just pointing to. There's not one by the 8. It's more down by the auditorium.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Jeff, you have a question?
No, I'm taking my hand down. It's not that quick, so sorry.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? If not, we'll move on to the 3-week look ahead.
All right, thank you. Okay, we've had a lot going on in the past few weeks. We've had a lot of programming meetings. We had programming meetings with art, special ed, technology. We talked about how we had the IT meeting as well. Moving on, next week is school vacation week. We have the pre-qualification meeting coming up for the CM tomorrow and another one on the 23rd. We also have our environmental engineer from Amar will be coming through the school to do his hazardous material walkthrough assessment. So that'll be happening next week. And then we've also set up a monthly meeting with the building inspector and TAP A. It'll be happening the last Friday of every month. And that's basically kind of the review where we're at with the floor plans and our code analysis to make sure that our code interpretation and the town's code interpretation is on the same wavelength and that we have no surprises later down the road. Moving on to March, we are focusing right now on the DD estimate. That I skipped over that. That'll be going out on the 25th at the end of next week. Following that, we have 2 weeks and we should be receiving the estimate back on the 11th. We are then focusing on trying to get the reconciliation the following week on the 18th so that we can try to get a number back to you guys for review at the building committee meeting on the 22nd if everything goes well. If not, that number will be reviewed on the 29th of March. And then again, moving on to the beginning of April, the final MSBA DD set submission will be going out on April 1st. Again, we're continuing to kind of focus on the estimate set and getting that wrapped up. And once that is done, we'll be focusing on the MSBA submission as we continue on with permitting and looking at the early release package as well. The survey crew was out on site the other week and they wrapped up their on-site work. They gave us a preliminary progress CAD plan for that as they continue to input the other work that they just completed. So we should be seeing that maybe end of this week, probably following week. So we should have the full survey at that point. Again, we've had a lot of meetings that we've gone through for programming. We had science, CM, pre-qual meetings, district leadership going over security and hardware, art, special ed, technology, programming meetings, and also the technology IT meeting that we just talked about for the technology and switching and everything else for the infrastructure of the building, along with the technology in the classrooms. And then finally, we had a lead kickoff meeting with our consultants and the OPM and everybody else to kind of get going on our lead scorecard and make sure we are carrying everything that we need for the DD estimate submission. There was a question at the last meeting regarding the bleacher capacity. The bleacher capacity is currently at 230 seats, and that is kind of based off of the maximum that we can get per code for having loose seats in the gymnasium along with the bleachers being occupied. Moving on, we've got the material costs for the breakdown of the different materials that we're using on the project. The split face CMU comes in at $32 per square foot, followed by the utility brick at $34 a square foot. We then a bump up from the calcium silicate for the linear brick that we've added to the project. That is $55 a square foot.
going up to the composite metal panel that comes in around $90 a square foot. And then the curtain wall with your standard kind of double glazing is $130 a square foot. And then if you go with the spandrel, there's an upcharge for the spandrel glass on top of the typical double glazing. Again, we've got a few images over here representing the split face CMU veneer. You can see it here and here. These are not our projects, but just representations of what that material looks like. And then as previously discussed, we're focusing on the cost estimate going out on 2/25 with the reconciliation by the 18th, followed by the MSBA DD submission going out on April 1st. Any questions?
And you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick question, and I don't know. I'm sorry if this is not for TAP A. Maybe it's more for the Compass folks. But on one of the reports that you all sent over to us, it talked about the geotechnical exploration and the borings being completed, and so it sounds like that was done. Did we receive a report from those folks yet, or any results of that that you
Yes,
could share with us?
We just got that last week and we can send it over to everybody.
But just in terms of the expectations, is it in line with what the expectations were with the project, and nothing was shown to be, unexpected?
Correct. Yeah, all their borings and everything else kind of matched up with what they had previously in SD. So no major surprises from any of the new work that they completed.
Okay, thank you.
Nancy, you had a question?
Yeah, I had a couple. You mentioned early on about having meetings with the building inspector. Have you talked to the planning board at all? Because one of the members of this committee, Jack Conroy, is the chair of the planning board. And I remember him saying that we would need to go to the planning board. It's just something to avoid surprises. I would have advised that you get in touch with Jack if you haven't yet.
Yes, that is on our list of to-do things that we will be reviewing with them as the project moves on.
Okay, different question. You mentioned the capacity of the bleachers at 230. Is it possible to have a second set of bleachers in that gym if we choose to do it?
It would be tough. There's not enough room in there for it. So basically, we've got seating on one side right now.
Right.
And there's no more room on the other side. There's the main court basically takes up that entire square footage. And then basically the way it's set up right now is we're kind of maxed out for the capacity for the egress. So if we look to increase and get more people into that space, we'll have to look at, making our stairs larger and getting more doors out of that space in order to meet that added capacity.
Okay, I'm just looking at it as, this is a major investment in the town, and it would be nice to have more capacity in the gym. But if it's not possible, then it's not possible.
Nancy, I don't think the middle school gyms are designed to, say, host high school basketball games. They just won't do it that way.
Yeah, no, I understand that. We're just going to be asked about it because it probably will be a nice gym when we're done. So I wanted to ask, but yeah, I understand.
Nancy, to follow up on Nancy's question, just for context, I don't have any, knowledge on this. What's some context for that in terms of capacity for gyms? I mean, what are you talking about, like a high school gym or like a larger middle school gym, or what's the context to that consideration?
Regarding like court size, my question is like as far as the court or the actual square footage?
No, the capacity, the number of people that you'd typically see in a space like that.
Again, that all varies on basically the square footage of the space and the egress out of it. So Chris, what have we done on our typical other middle schools for our gym capacity? I'm trying to think what we had off the top of our head.
Or square footage, whatever the controlling factor is. Yeah, I mean, like where does that fall? For example.
So right now, our max capacity that we're posting for the space is 900. And again, based on the square footage, I think we could go, if we had extra egress, we could get some more in. But I think for our typical middle schools, we've been probably around 900 to I think 1,200 for the capacity of the typical middle school, depending on the square footage that we have got allotted to us.
Ally, you had a question?
I did quick, and it was kind of about capacity. So we're talking about the bleacher capacity being 230. What is the auditorium capacity? And then in relation to now the fact that it's, all of grade 6, all of grade 7, all of grade 8, what are the estimated size for each grade or the pods for like 3 groups? I'm just trying to think of meeting when it's kind of a whole group meeting or whole grade meeting.
So the auditorium capacity is at 600 seats, to answer your first question. And then the typical pods, we have 4 classrooms in each of those. And if there's 25 students in each of those classrooms, you've got 100 students in there.
Are you taking into account the science room, Matt? I think it's 5 classrooms, correct?
5, yeah, sorry, 5
Yeah, so-
counting the science classrooms, correct?
Yeah, 5 at about 20. So the original thinking on the auditorium, Ally, was that you'd be able to fit basically 2 grades at the auditorium at one time, or 1 grade performing with 2 folks from home in the audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think the middle school is going to be so large, there's no way you can get the entire school in one meeting spot. That's just going to be really hard to accommodate. But I just kind of was thinking about the gym or the auditorium that a whole grade could meet together.
Well,
Yeah, so I think from a capacity perspective, you could get pretty close in the gym if they're just sitting or with chairs.
Ally, for reference, I think the typical high school, the guidance, or at least it used to be, is to be able to fit half the student body in there. So we're able to fit 2/3. So not a bad deal.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Ben, did you have another question, or is your just hand still up from before?
It's still up from before, but my question wasn't about the capacity of the entire school. It was just following up on, and not to add additional confusion, but just following up on what Nancy said when we say, well, we have 230 ability to put 230 heads in the gymnasium, and the idea of whether that's a lot or a little for the square footage of a middle school gymnasium is the context I was looking for there, not the 900 or whatever for the school as a whole. It seemed like the size of the gymnasium was above average. So I just wondered if the number of people you fit in there, and based on the stairs and everything, I know there's a lot of factors, but so to follow up, and Nancy had said, well, if somebody asks about how many people we could fit in there, what is additional context to that? How many people can you fit in a normal middle school gym?
Seems like a lot to me, but I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know either. So that could be an answer for a future date, talking a little bit more about the gymnasium and how many people we're actually looking to fit in there.
Are you looking for bleachers or for overall capacity? Again, it depends on how you set it up and how you look at it for the code, because we could probably add a little bit more for the bleacher capacity, and then take out the number of seats that we have if you have loose chairs set up in the actual gymnasium. Mm-hmm. So we can move stuff around probably a little bit if we want to get a slightly larger bleacher capacity and have less loose chairs accounted for. But we're not going to be able to get too much more, just because we're limited with the gym storage that we have on one side, and then the entry into the actual gymnasium itself is on the other side.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments before we move on through the agenda? So our next item on the agenda is a vote to accept the recommendation of exterior and interior materials. So I'm going to ask Chin or Brian, are we voting on the landscaping materials as well, or
no?
So does anybody have any questions or comments or concerns, not about colors, but just the exterior materials for budget purposes? If not, I will accept a motion to accept the recommendation for exterior and interior materials. Anybody?
So moved.
Ally, I have a motion from Ally. Do I have a second?
Second.
Anybody? Second from Ms. Gallivan. Let me poll the committee. Ms. Gallivan.
Yes.
Mr. Frisha.
Yes.
Mr. Connor.
Yes.
Mr. Jeffrey Fisher.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton,
Yes.
Dr. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Jack Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Hahn,
Yes.
Mr. Senek,
Yes.
Mr. Barrett,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Did I miss anybody? It is a vote. Does anybody have any final questions or concerns? If not, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Mark, is there a community forum being scheduled for sure?
March 9th, I believe. Brian or Chin, can we confirm that?
Yeah, Chin had to hop off. So right now we have March 9th circulated on the calendar. So we're getting communications out about that. We'll get something out this week through Dr. Goff in the school department. That'll be an update with kind of a lot of the renderings that we've seen the last few meetings here, just to get folks up to speed. We'll get the renderings, the most current ones, up on the website as well. And then follow-up meetings with this committee. I think we talked through, we're going to be on the, what did we say, the 8th, 22nd, and 29th of March.
Jeff, you had a question?
Yeah, comment and question and, last spring, we had a discussion around the meeting times. And we all agreed at the time that 7 o'clock was kind of the best for most people from a scheduling standpoint. And just wanted people's opinion, if that still works. We've been meeting at 6. It's very difficult for me.
Does anybody have any objections to, I won't say farming a 7 o'clock meeting, but considering a 7 o'clock meeting?
Mark, I'm sorry, I've been kind of quiet this meeting.
Yeah.
My preference, and sorry to go against you, Jeff, I prefer to keep it at 6. We got a lot of meetings going on here on Tuesday nights, and it's just easier, I know, for myself and Ben to come to this, but that's just my 2 cents.
Anybody else have a preference? So Jeff,
Mark, this is Boris.
Yeah, Boris.
7 o'clock would be my preference as well. If it needs to be changed to a different time, not to coincide with any other town meetings, I'd be open to that as well.
Very good. Anybody else have any comments?
I mean, Mark, I guess my comment is we did take a vote on this back in the spring and we established 7 o'clock. Somewhere along the way that changed. So.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look, Jeff. I forget one way or the other, but I will take a look at the previous meeting minutes and figure out how to reconcile it.
Okay. I mean, if it's a Tuesday issue, do we look at alternate day?
That's a thought. Very good. Anybody else?
I would suggest that if there's a problem with 7 o'clock on Tuesday, look at an alternate day.
Okay. That's a thought as well. So Jeff, I'll go back and look at the minutes and
I actually didn't see it in the minutes. So.
Oh, okay.
I went back. I know we had the conversation.
Yep. Okay. We'll get it figured out one way or the other.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Does anybody have any final comments before we take a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, just one.
Yep.
Are we reaching out to the neighbors in particular for this community forum? Or are they being like addressed separately? Just wanted to know about that part.
Ryan?
The direct abutters, Nancy, we weren't reaching out to the direct abutters. This is going to be more of a community at large. We're working through a meeting with Warner Larson and Parks Department to kind of go through landscaping and some of the more details along the perimeter of the site before we kind of reach back out to the abutters. And also, obviously, everyone will be notified and part of the planning board process. They all will get notices. Every abutter will be able to attend that meeting or those meetings.
Okay, great. I just wanted to know how to, I'm friendly with somebody who lives nearby, and this is not the main one for them. There'll be a more targeted one. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, we've kept those items as running notes on our kind of organizational meeting minutes. So we haven't lost that, but we wanted to meet with Parks first.
Yep.
And then all the abutters will get invites to the planning board and permitting process.
Thank you.
Very good. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion from Ms. Gallivan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Fisher. Let me poll the committee. Ms. Gallivan,
Yes.
Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Jeffrey Fisher,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton,
Yes.
Mr. Jack Fisher,
Yes.
Dr. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Senek,
Yes.
Mr. Barrett,
Yes.
and I vote yes. It is a vote. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night now. Take care.